February's Steam Next Fest brought many demos for gamers of all types, some impressive ones, some showing great potential, and others falling a bit flat. But there was one that really stood out, one that set this Baldurs Gate 3 fan's heart aflutter. Could this be the answer for those craving an RPG as immersive, colorful, and engaging as BG3? Enter Solasta 2. Don't click away, hear me out. If you've played or watched the first Solasta and have not been exposed to Solasta 2 yet, then you are probably very skeptical of what I've said. Perhaps even indignant. Wouldst thou compare a common dandelion to a red rose? Look, I take BG3 and comparisons to it very seriously. So I don't say this lightly. Solasta 2's demo made me more excited than any other RPG I have tried since playing BG3. I felt giddy. And this is how I felt from a demo that is in pre-alpha, meaning it's very early in development, so they still have plenty of time to make it even better. So if you haven't clicked off yet, let's talk about what makes this demo so promising and taking up the mantle left behind by Baldurs Gate 3. Characters and story. One of the things that makes BG3 so difficult to compete with is its dedication to making memorable characters and a fantastical story that makes you feel immersed in the world. Although the time in Solasta 2 is short, you do get familiarized with the personalities of the characters you are playing as well as that of several NPCs. Even in the brief span of the demo, it was clear that attention and care was being given to these characters, that everyone's dialogue mattered, that their personalities mattered, and that how you interacted with them had the potential to impact further interactions and the story. And although not much of the story was revealed, there was enough tease to leave me wanting more. What was the deal with this usually peaceful but suddenly rampaging dragon? And was there more to Jabori than there seemed? Honestly, this demo could have done this part right and everything else wrong, and still have had a mostly positive reception. Art. Looks aren't everything, but they can certainly help. Solasta 2 is a major upgrade aesthetically from the first game. You can tell that as soon as you get a look at one of the characters. There's more detail, more lines, more movements, things that assist you in getting immersed because you're not distracted by graphics that sometimes look like they should be on a PS2. And it's not just the characters, it's the environments too. Things like the water and the sand look pretty darn good for a game in pre-alpha. Music. Every good visual story also needs solid auditory support. Imagine how much more boring it would be to fight Raphael in the House of Hope if the only music playing was some mellow lo-fi.
If you have any last words, make it quick. It will only take a moment to finish you.
The music tells the story as much as the visuals and the writing do, so it's important to nail this early on. Although I can't say that any of the music was particularly bombastic or muse-invoking, it was solid. It fit the environment, the actions that were happening, and the story that was unfolding. And, just as importantly, it wasn't getting in the way of anything happening on screen. Music needs to find the balance between telling its story while also not erasing the other parts of the story being told. Mechanics and UI. Sometimes this category gets overlooked when reviewing games, and I think that's a mistake. Mechanics and UI can make or break a game, especially a turn-based CRPG. I don't think I've ever seen a game get this perfect, but BG3 had it down pretty well by the time version 1.0 released. Solasta 2, though a different look from BG3, certainly seems to have taken some inspiration. Now, to be fair, the mechanics are based on D&D, just like the first one, but some kudos should be given when a game does a good job of implementing rules from a different format into their own, and I think Solasta 2 demo showed a solid display of this. The UI is relatively simple when you're not in a menu. You have the character portraits on the upper left, a selection of 4 buttons in the upper right, the selected or lead character's portrait in the bottom left, the action buttons in the bottom middle, and the quests on the right hand side. Even when in battle, it doesn't change that much. Any enemies or allies will be added into the character portraits. You'll get a combat log on the left-hand side. You'll get an end turn button in the bottom right-hand corner, and a few extra buttons in the bottom middle. When you have to go to a store or equip something, the menus should be very familiar for BG3 players, and the way they work is pretty similar. Tutorials. Tutorials simply aren't given enough credit, and yet they are so important. Perhaps they aren't important specifically to you as someone who plays all the CRPGs and knows the D&D rules backwards and forwards, but good, strong tutorials are what makes CRPGs accessible to new audiences. And to be fair, not every CRPG is created equal, so what worked in one may not in the next. BG3 did a great job introducing players who were either new to the genre or new to D&D and how their game worked. The tutorials were presented in an aesthetically pleasing way and were simple to follow. Solasta 2's demo showed the same effort, taking care to acknowledge players who were diving into D&D systems for the first time. You can't properly rise to the ranks of BG3 without welcoming in a new audience of new CRPG players. I saved the best news for last. Solasta 2 is supposed to enter early access this year. So just like with BG3, we will have the opportunity to help shape Solasta 2. And if you're watching this, you're probably a BG3 fan, which means you should check out some of the awesome character builds we've done, like this one over here.